LEGO is a toy first and foremost, but that doesn't change the fact that the company has been leaning heavily into large display sets for a few years now. Many of these larger sets aren't designed to be played with, meaning that they're often a bit more fragile than some of LEGO's more playable offerings, which is fine, that is, until it becomes too fragile. Let me show you these LEGO sets that fall apart way too easily. The Bonsai Tree is quite possibly the most commonly owned LEGO set out there and is responsible for the massive popularity of the botanicals theme, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. While this set's stand and flower pot are stable, the same can't be said for the tree itself. The leaves and branches are all surprisingly sturdy and aren't likely to go anywhere on their own. However, the base of the tree is a different matter entirely, and has earned this set a reputation as one of LEGO's most fragile builds. The base of the tree is well known for popping off with even the slightest bump, and if we take a look at the instructions, we can see the problem. Starting with Bag 2, you'll need to start building the tree's base by attaching several clip elements to a 6x6 round plate before moving on to the tree's trunk. The next several pages are pretty straightforward, and the construction of the trunk is possibly the most fun and complicated part of the entire build, at least until you try to attach it to the base. On step 25, you'll need to add 2 of these 2x3 plates with bars. First released back in 2017, these are some extremely versatile pieces that have made their way into nearly 200 sets. But they aren't perfect. For starters, they only have 4 studs, which means that you're only getting 66% of the normal clutch power from a 2x3 brick. Secondly, the clip bar connection isn't the strongest that LEGO makes. These clips are prone to breaking, and the connection can't support too much weight. So when step 26 has you connect the tree to the base via only these 2 clips, LEGO fans start to worry. As it turns out, those worries are well-founded, and the connection between the tree and base is very weak. Luckily, this is a pure display piece, and isn't going to be getting moved around too much. But I can tell you from personal experience that you do want to be very careful when handling this set or moving it to a new shelf. In fact, this reminds me of one of LEGO's fairly rare non-botanical plants, the piranha plant, which is a super fun build with 540 parts that looks great on any shelf. With the construction of the large green pipe as a base, this set is remarkably stable, despite the fact that it's also somewhat top-heavy. Unlike the Bonsai Tree, the chances of this build coming apart are much smaller, however, it is top-heavy, and when it falls over, it can break apart. If you've ever built this set, you've probably noticed how top-heavy this build gets thanks to its large, toothy head, which is surprisingly dense and quite heavy. As we can see in the instructions, it's connected to the stem by a single ball and socket joint. While this is a durable connection, there's almost zero friction here, and the head simply flops around, making it almost impossible to put this thing into any other pose other than the one in all of the images. You'd think that this set would have more posability, but it really doesn't. Turning from one video game theme to another, LEGO Minecraft has been quietly churning out several sets a year since 2013 and has given us some true gems in that period. One of the newest sets as of writing this video is the 665-piece Creeper. This is a somewhat unique build for this Minecraft line, as almost all of the builds are typically small-scale playsets done in minifigure scale. This guy, though, stands nearly a foot tall, towering over even the largest Minecraft sets. The issue in the set can be found pretty early on in Bag 2. While building the legs, you'll use several of these dark green hinge plates to connect the legs to the hips and allow them to move up and down. These pieces have literally zero friction and are completely incapable of supporting the legs, meaning that, like the piranha plant, trying to pose this guy is almost impossible. I've seen a lot of comments from LEGO fans on sites like Reddit kind of complaining about this set, so if you have it, let me know your thoughts below. The smallest set in today's video, the SpongeBob SquarePants Flying Dutchman, set sail in 2012 with only 241 parts and 3 unique minifigures. As a fairly small playset, people didn't have massive expectations, but this particular build had one section that stood out for all the wrong reasons. Looking at this image, you can probably tell where the weak point is in the design. The ship's mast is a tall and thin construction, with only a single point of connection. However, that connection is a Technic axle slotted through this 2x2 gray brick, and this 2x2 round brown brick. This does actually create a rather sturdy connection, but sets the stage for the real issue. The ship's sail in this set is pretty unique. It's not a cloth sail like many larger ships, and it's also not full construction like some of the smaller boats. Instead, it's a single, rather large, curved and printed element that's held in place by a single bar clip connection, which, as mentioned a moment ago, isn't terribly stable. As an added bonus, the flag on top is only stuck in with the top of a single rod, making it extremely likely to pop off. Now, going from a small ship to a much, much larger one, the 3,449-piece UCS Death Star II was one of the largest sets ever released back in 2005, and despite its name, was actually the first LEGO Death Star ever released. Looking at this image, you might think that this is another extremely top-heavy set that's prone to falling over, but you'd be mistaken. The base and stand are deeply integrated into the build, and this thing is not going to fall over. No, the problem with this particular set is actually the massive lasers firing from the front. It's the most standout part of this set, these neon green lasers. They are really incredible, and the design is a perfect recreation of the film. However, the construction of this part of the build is truly terrible. Just one look at page 90 of the instructions should tell you all you need to know. Yes, that's 24 1x1 round bricks stacked on top of each other with no internal support. Surrounding that, you've got 8 sets of 4 more bricks, each topped with a transparent green antenna piece. To make things worse, all of these are attached to only a single stud, meaning that all it takes is a stiff breeze to knock them off. Now, this was one of LEGO's first massive sets, and they were still figuring out how durable these sets should be. This particular design would never really be used like this again, as designers figured out better techniques and LEGO made a wider range of pieces. But credit to where credit is due, designing LEGO sets can be very complicated. However, it's actually super simple to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you enjoy looking at these sets. Jumping forward a few decades, but sticking with Star Wars, the Republic Juggernaut was released in 2025 with 813 parts, 8 minifigures, and a staggering price of $150. With that kind of price tag, people expected a seriously impressive build. And while it's not a terrible set, the design definitely left at least a few builders pretty disappointed. This set is the 8th version of the clone turbo tank, so you'd think that LEGO would have figured out the best way to design it by now. I'm sorry to say that that's not exactly the case here, but I'm not here to compare this version to previous incarnations, so let's focus on what makes this set so fragile. Handling the vehicle by the side panels or roof is likely to cause problems immediately, and I can easily imagine younger kids trying to grip it from the roof in particular. Unlike previous models which used Technic frames to support the roof, this version features no real internal support at all. Now, just to be very clear, this isn't some kind of fundamental flaw with the model, but more of an annoying weakness. It's especially troublesome because, as I mentioned, older versions didn't have this problem, so it's just a little disappointing to see LEGO forget past lessons. Moving on, the Medieval Blacksmith is one of LEGO's finest ideas sets over the last several years. It contains over 2,100 pieces and 4 minifigures. Overall, this build is incredible, and like most of LEGO's large building offerings, it's a secure build that isn't likely to come undone. Well, except for one part. The apple tree in front of the building is a super well-designed sub-build that borrows a few design elements from the Bonsai Tree, for better and for worse. Much like the larger tree, this little guy has an incredibly unstable base and is extremely prone to falling over with even the slightest bump. To get to the bottom of this problem, though, takes a bit of explanation. If we take a look at page 42 of the instructions, we can see where the issue begins. Down at the bottom of the page, we see the first root being placed next to a small section of bricks, including 4 of these rounded 1x2 plates with holes. Over the next few pages, we see this area get built up a bit, leaving a 1x2 gap in the middle. Several pages later, we start building the tree, and as you can see, many of these small branches are held in place by a single stud, meaning that they're likely to get knocked off pretty easily. But that's just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. On step 75, you can see that the bottom of the tree has 2 brown Technic rods sticking out less than a centimeter. Jump to step 90 and the completed tree needs to be placed into the hole that we left behind a few bags earlier. The idea here is to slot the exposed Technic rods into the rounded 1x2 plates, which is certainly possible and is potentially a super solid connection. However, in this set, the rods only barely insert into the provided holes, leaving the entire tree in a particularly precarious position. Now, another set that I see a lot of LEGO fans complain about its durability is Optimus Prime. This was one of LEGO's most ambitious sets when it released in 2022. While it's hardly the first set to transform from one shape to another, it was possibly the largest and most complex, with its 1,508 bricks and being nearly 20 inches tall, or 50 centimeters. Overall, this is a great set thanks to its ample upper body articulation, good selection of accessories, and impressive display value. However, the main selling point of this set is also where it runs into a few minor issues. Transforming a completed LEGO set from a giant robot to a functioning truck is no small feat, and the designers at LEGO had to work with some serious constraints to ensure that the design matched the source material. Overall, they did a fantastic job, but this transformation has been criticized by many LEGO fans for putting too much stress on certain connections and leading to the build splitting in two. The specific issue is a combination of loose connections in Optimus's legs and a somewhat complicated transformation process. You see, transforming Optimus Prime from robot to truck takes 20 very specific steps. They must all be done in order. Applying too much pressure or failing to bend the model correctly will cause the build to break apart. It's a fragile build with a lot of loose joints and a very wonky weight distribution, which explains why so many fans have troubles with this set. However, not all sets are so fragile, and some even hide hidden references, which is what I talk about in this video. Click on this video right now to explore hidden secrets found in LEGO builds, and be sure to tap the notification bell when you subscribe so you don't miss my next video.